You know, he wanted to know, and he was like, you're going to have that background check back to me, right? And they were like, yes, we'll have it back to you.
All right, we can calm down.
And take off.
So, when we came back at 2 o'clock, Judge Cole had already read through the background check, and he was wondering why I was sitting in custody for 6.5 months. And he says, okay, I've looked at the background check, and I'm going to ask again.
Mm-hmm.
Has he been sitting in jail for 6.5 months? And nobody had an answer. So he then said, you know what? This is my judgment on this. Based on the Supreme Court, based on the Seventh Circuit's orders, this whole situation is canceled. And he was like, you're going home today. Now, here comes the really interesting part of this. You have to understand how release from federal custody, from immigration custody works. It's a 48-hour process. I had been cut loose.
Yeah, yep.
At 10 o'clock in the morning. By standard, 48 hours should pass. ICE wasn't supposed to come and pick me up to take me to Chicago, which then what would happen is that I would be released from their center because I'm obviously their,
That's
person.
That's the hub there, yeah.
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 So if I'm being held in federal custody and Dodge County is just a holding facility, for them, I would go to Chicago. I would leave at 4 o'clock the next morning. They would take me to Chicago. They would process me out. They would hold me for another day while they vet the person who was coming to pick me up to make sure, that they were on the up and up. And then when that person got there, I would be released. That's how it's supposed to go. That's how we watched it happen on a regular basis. That's when I ask the questions, that's the same answer that you get. It's pretty much a 48-hour process. Okay? I just had one of my students get released from Waukesha County Jail. It took 8 hours. When you get released from jail, they take their time and there's paperwork to do, and it could take 2 to 6, 7 hours to be released from a jail. The judge told the CO who was in the courtroom, I was in Dodge County by video to Chicago. My wife.
Oh, so you were in.
I was in Dodge County.
Okay.
My wife was in court in Chicago.
Okay.
With my attorney. And before she could even get from the courtroom, to the elevator, she received a phone call. And it was ICE. It was the federal government. And they literally said, hey, Mrs. Amachree, we've been following the case. We know that your husband was just told all this went down. And they go, we're releasing him. And she was like, I know.
Yeah, right.
So I can spend the night in Chicago. I know that you're going to transport him here, and I can pick him up tomorrow.
Yeah.
And he said, no, we're going to release him from Dodge County. And she goes, oh. And he goes, how soon will you be able to get there? And she goes, well, it's a 3-hour drive. 3 hours, I'll be there to pick him up. He told my wife that wasn't enough time. 3 hours was too long.
Oh, too much time.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Okay.
He told her that 3 hours was too much time.
Why?
It was weird because she's with the attorney, and the attorney was like, what do you mean? And she said, they're saying that they're releasing him now. And he was like, well, that's good, 3 hours, you'll be back. And she's going, no. They're saying that 3 hours is too much time. And it was an interesting comment that the ICE officer made on the phone, the supervisor. Now, this is the Chicago. Okay? He said, Mrs. Amachree, we don't want to be held responsible for him sitting there a minute longer than he already has.
Oh.
They told her that on the phone. So then she's in a panic now, going, what am I supposed to do? The ICE supervisor said, do you have somebody? He knew where we lived. He goes, you have a house there, don't you? And she said, yeah. He goes, do you have somebody that can go to the jail and get him? And so she scrambles, gets her mom to jump in her car and drive to Juneau and show up at the jail. While all this is going on, there is a whirlwind happening in the jail. Something I have never, ever seen before in my life. So I find out I'm getting released. I'm trying to pass out, here's a Bible, here's some Snickers bars, I'm trying to do all the, the niceties, for, you're getting ready to leave. All of a sudden, there are 4 officers that come rushing in to the cell, like they're walking fast. They go into my cell and they start, like, I was like, I got valet. I'm like
packing you up, helping you move.
They were packing me up, and I'm out there, passing out zuzus and wham whams. And one officer comes up to me and she goes, Mr. Amachree, I mean, I know you want to, say goodbye and that, but she goes, we have to get you out of here. And I said, what is going on? And she goes, I'm not supposed to say this, but they've given us 30 minutes to get you out of this jail.
No kidding. Boy, somebody must have been a bad boy.
I couldn't imagine who it was.
They had to get you out.
In 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And here's the other interesting thing. It was an ICE officer that put me into custody. Okay? But ICE wasn't the ones who processed me out. Now, so think about this. I'm supposed to be, Dodge County is just a holding facility. I'm not there in Dodge County under any Dodge County charges.
Right.
I'm there supposedly under
The
federal government.
Yeah, yeah.
And they have a process where they would take me from Dodge County and they would process me out because I'm their person.
Yeah.
That's not what happened. It was like they completely took their hands off and said, you guys do it. So, and 30 minutes.
And that was it. You were done, huh? Gone.
And that was it.
Well, something happened that wasn't supposed to happen.
Well, we knew that.
Yeah.
And that's
It
why.
caught up to him.
Well, and that's the thing. When you're used to doing corrupt things, when you're used to doing things that aren't right, when you're used to taking advantage of people, when you're used to using your authority to hurt others, and that's just a norm for you, you do stupid things like leave a paper trail of the stuff that you do. You do things like put people in jail because you don't like them and you want to try to teach them a lesson. So when we look back on the story logically, we realize that in February there's an email going back and forth between the Sheriff's Department and ICE. And that email says that I am a final order of deportation. But when we look at the whole story, there was no final order of deportation because it didn't exist yet. Judge Cole made the final order in my case. The final order in my case was not deportation. The final order in my case was cancellation of the whole process. That was the final order. One of the really cool things that happened while I was in there, like I say, I travel all over the country. I've helped hundreds of people, hundreds of families, connected to hundreds of people, other people. I'm connected to FBI directors. I'm connected to district attorneys. I'm connected to people all over the place, and at one point in time, news came out, California, Indiana, Illinois, all these, 3 months in, there was news out of Indiana that I had been put in jail here in Wisconsin. And I don't think they expected any of that stuff. I don't think they expected people to care.
Uh-huh.
They didn't know the network of people that I had already developed, in this job and in this line of work.
Well, and that's why District Attorney Klomberg wants this dismissed, and maybe some other people, and we're saying we want this looked at because something went on here that was not supposed to happen.
And we just want to figure out why.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, this is not about, $5 million. I mean, I could care less. This is about finding the answer to what happened. My favorite superhero is Batman. I'm a Batman fan. DC Comics. It's all about the detective comics.
Okay.
This is not about bringing this to an end and being done with it and having it dismissed or even having it settled or having it, none of that. For me, this is about digging into it and finding out exactly what happened.
And make sure it doesn't happen again.
And
right?
make sure it doesn't happen to somebody else.
Yeah, it shouldn't have.
Because there are people in our community that were hurt. There were people in our community that received phone calls from the sheriff. People in our community who were lied to by the district attorney. Also, they could cover up what had happened because they knew that they had done something wrong. That just makes me sad. And I feel like my community deserves better than that.
So now, it was dismissed, but you file an appeal.
It was dismissed under a weird, it's called 8A. It was dismissed under a procedural
Thing.
Okay. Rule. So what happened is that 8A is actually a rule that says just because you don't have all the facts doesn't mean you don't have a case.
Okay.
So 8A was designed so when people file lawsuits,
Sure.
the people who they file them against can't just go, yeah, none of that's true, it's frivolous, throw it out.
Okay.
That's why 8A was designed.
Okay.
So, I mean, literally, I had the judge that we have. He's new. I mean, I don't know him personally, but he's a new judge in that position, and we think that it was too much for him, that having to look into whether or not a district attorney and a sheriff had committed felonies, looking into conspiracy to harm somebody in their community simply because they have different views on how to help people in their community.
Wow.
It's just
hard to figure, yeah.
And we think that it was just his way of going, I just don't want to touch that, which is okay. I mean, it is a lot. It is huge. It does need to be looked at. But again, I can see how a judge would be like, I don't want to be the one to open, that can.
So you filed an appeal.
Yep.
And then what's the next step now?
We're waiting. They have until July 11th
To
respond. Yeah.
So it's not gone. This
No,
lawsuit.
and they weren't like, found not guilty.
Right. Right.
I just, again, to me, I get it's politics, but it just seems infantile. It seems childish. It's like the kid on the block that's, got, milk on his face, and he's like, no, I didn't get into the creamer, and you've got milk all over your face, you've got cookie crumbs all over your teeth, and you're like, no, I didn't go in the cookie jar. It seems really infantile not to just go, hey, Mr. Amachree, we're really sorry. We made a mistake, and that should have never happened. That's the human thing to do, But now we're in a massive lawsuit because you want to keep hiding. And what's crazy to me is that these are our law enforcement people. These are people that are holding people in our community accountable for doing things wrong, but yet themselves are running and hiding from the wrong that they're doing.
Well, they should just throw themselves at the mercy of the court system that they're a part of and say, let's see what all happens here. Let's follow this through.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, what they should be saying is what you're saying. Okay, we don't understand this. Yeah, let's look into this and find out what we did wrong. But they don't want to do that. And so when you don't want people to know what you did wrong, 9 out of 10 it means you know what you did wrong.
That could be.
Right?
That could be. Yeah.
So it's this whole thing, and somebody asked me the other day, it was like, yeah, that what they did was dumb and what they did was stupid and what they did was wicked and mean and all the other bad words that, you can use. But if it came down to it, would you work with them, again, to help people? And at the end of the day, it's not about me and it's not about them.
Yeah, that's right.
It's about the people in our community.
Yeah.
And if I had to work with, either one of them to save somebody's life in this community, I wouldn't even think twice, because it's not about me or them. It's about the people in our community.
Yeah.
Which is why I have to push this. Once again, it's even in the lawsuit, the fact that you're law enforcement and you're trying to hide your crime.
Well,
And I am trying to help people take a responsibility for what they do and move on and have a better life. Even in the irony of the lawsuit comes back to our viewpoints are still contradictory. What I do is still contradictory to what they do. And it shouldn't be.
yeah. Can that be changed? Well, anything is possible if you have people that open their minds to work together. That's really what it's all about.
And what makes me
Yeah.
really sad is that there are people who work under them that are good people, that are hardworking people, that are, and I meet them. I talk to COs and stuff. We meet, in town and stuff, and
Sure.
we have conversations. And you can, these are good people who just have bad leadership. And it's up to us in this community to change the leadership.
And sometimes we have to do this kind of thing to just make it happen. And
And that's
hopefully
like-
it'll be better in the end, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And like I said,
Yeah.
that's what I'm all about.
Yeah.
It's not about bashing them. It's not about saying they're horrible people. It's not about any of that stuff. It's about saying they did something wrong and they should be adult enough to admit that. If you're going to be up in court pointing to somebody on the stand going, you did something wrong and I'm going to send you to prison for that. Or if you're wearing a badge going, you did something wrong and I'm going to take you to jail for that. What I live is I have been through these bad things. And now I'm going to help you through these bad things. I've been there. I've done that. These people should be able to say, we are the top in law enforcement and we follow the law. That's my problem.
Good points. Well, we will keep following what's going on here. Thank you for spending time with us here. And if you have some individuals that would like to add to it, like you said, I'm
Absolutely.
sure that would be good.
Absolutely.
Just to give everybody perspective on what's going on here and the importance of being able to follow through to make Dodge County even better, I think,
I mean, that's we the people in order to form a more perfect union.
Yeah.
This is a process of getting better. This is a process of being better than we were before. And it states it.
Yeah, it's not a perfect government we're living in, but it's on its way to form a more perfect government. We're always aiming for that, right? Yep.
And the words are a more perfect union.
More perfect union, okay.
This isn't a more perfect separation. We're trying to get better at coming together.
Yeah,
That's what it says.
yeah.
And that's who we're supposed to be.
Very well put. And we'll end it there. Thank you for joining us, and I'm sure we'll see each other again.
Absolutely.
Thank you.